Hello, everybody. So I decided to talk about Orlando by Virginia Woolf and to make a comparison between the book and the filmic version. Um, I also had to make some choices about the themes I'm going to talk about, because there are many themes in the book and I don't have much time, so I'm going to start now. I'm going to talk about how society would influence in people's lives, and how society would influence in gender, how the gender is constructed by society. So, when Orlando was a man, in the beginning of the book, more precisely in the 16th century, we see Orlando right in the beginning making something that only men could do, not women. It's like he's there in the mountain, in the oak, and he's writing some poetry, thinking about life, which is something that Orlando used to do a lot during the whole narrative. And then the Queen Elizabeth arrives. He's home, and then he has to run to change his clothes and to offer her some water with roses for her to wash her hands. So this is something that only men could do. Obviously, women would not be so close of the queen and to do that. And I think it's in the next chapter of the book, or yes, the second or in the third chapter. I think it's in the third chapter. Orlando goes to Turkey because he becomes a man involved with politics. He becomes ambassador of England. And again, this is something that only men could do. Of course, women would not be able to become ambassadors of England. And he goes to Turkey, and then he has to pay all those visits to those important men of the country. And but I believe it's only when Orlando becomes a woman that the story becomes a little bit more interesting, because we can see how society would treat women and how women would have these ridiculous obligations just because they were women. And the first example of that is when Orlando is coming back from Turkey to England, and she's in the ship, and then she's resting in the ship, all good, and then a man looks to her ankle that was appearing, just a little piece of her ankle she was showing her ankle, and then a man almost fell down and almost died because of it from a very high place. And then she starts to reflecting like, oh my god, how ridiculous is that I cannot show my ankle because otherwise I'm going to kill a man, And she starts to realize, and then when she was a man, she wouldn't think about it, like she wouldn't care about it. And now that she was a woman, she has to be worried with not showing a little piece of her skin because someone can die, So and now, from this moment on, she starts to feel and to realize what would be like to be a woman. And there are some things that Orlando does during the book, and some things in the movie, because not everything that is in the book is in the movie. And she starts to do things that society would impose her to do, and she doesn't really know why she's doing that. She's just doing. I'm going to give you an example. When she arrives in England, she starts to receive a lot of invitations to go to parties or to dinners in people who are from high society. And she just goes, she becomes someone important, and she has to play the part. She has to go to these dinners to be respected in society. And she doesn't. We don't know actually if she likes going there. I don't think that she knows if she likes going. She's just going because she was a woman. People invited her, and a lady would have to please society, you know. And another example, really strong example, I think it's in the 5th chapter. Orlando wants so badly to get married, you know. She's there, and one of those days, one random day, she looks to her finger, and she starts to want so badly to get married. She has this need of getting married, and there's a part that she says, "Oh, I'm not fighting against this wish anymore. I have to find someone, and I have to get married." And she didn't even know why she wanted that. You know, it's just because women wanted to get married. Everybody in a certain age had to get married, so she needed to get married too. I think this is in the 19th century or in the end of the 18th century. And then she starts this crazy search for a husband, which is different. The book is different. The movie is different from the book, because in the book we see this woman Orlando crazy about getting married and stuff, and in the movie we don't see that. We just see Orlando. There's this scene of Orlando refusing the Archduke Harry, and then she starts running through the labyrinth, and then when she gets out of the labyrinth, she finds the man who would be her husband. And in this scene I really like the fact that she asks his hand, you know. I think that was really nice, because in general a man was supposed to ask for a woman's hand. And the next scene in the movie, I think that's really nice, because in the book she was the one who twisted the ankle, but in the movie the husband was the one who twisted the ankle, and then we see her guiding the horse. And I think it was really nice, the sequence of her asking his hand, and then she was guiding the horse. And let me see my script here. Yeah, and there's this another example. She's already in the 20th century, and she's going to a store to buy some things, some boots and other things. And then she's driving her car because she was an excellent driver, and she's screaming with people in the street, because London at that time would be really crowded, the streets would be crazy, and she's screaming because she wanted people to get out of her way, because she was in a hurry, and she's there screaming, "Get out of the way!" And then she comes back to her mind, and then she starts to think, why am I doing that? You know, why am I screaming? She wasn't aware of why she was doing that. She was just doing. And I can see that in two different ways. If we think only about Orlando, this confusion would due to the fact that Orlando had just turned from a century to another, so he would be confused. He would not have this conscious of the previous years in that century, so he would be confused. But we can see Orlando, of course, representing society in general, like people at that time used to act like this, but they didn't know why, you know. Nowadays we have our culture, but we do things and we don't know why we're doing things. We just do because society imposes this to her, to us. So it's really nice to think only about Orlando and then think about Orlando representing the whole society, you know. And I think that's it. Oh, I have to talk about the clothes, which I think is really, really nice. The first thing, the first time that clothes that we see, that we read in the book, that the author talks about clothes, it's when Orlando sees Sasha right in the beginning of the book, and then in the book he doesn't know if Sasha is a man or a woman, because she's wearing pants and some manly clothes. So Orlando doesn't know if she's a woman or a man. So we can see how clothes would play an important role. But there is a part in the book which I think portrays really well what clothes would represent. It's when Orlando is already a woman, and at first she was afraid of getting out at night, being dressed like a woman. First because she was afraid of being robbed, and second because she was afraid of what society would think about a lady in the streets at night alone, so you see, society would, well. And then after this episode, I think it's in the next chapter, Orlando would decide to make this alternation between men clothes and women clothes. And then when she's dressed like a man, she can get out at night. And yeah, in this part, there's a passage that says that Orlando would sometimes dress like a man and sometimes dress like a woman, and that by doing that, she could enjoy the pleasures or something, like she could enjoy the love of both sexes. Like, so here we have a narrative talking openly that Orlando would have sex with both sexes, with women and men. But in the movie we don't see that. I don't remember any passage of the movie that we see this insinuation that Orlando would have sex with both sexes. And I think that's it. I really enjoyed reading the book, and I love the movie. We had to make that activity previously and talk about this work, and I said that I didn't like the movie, but after watching it sometimes more, I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoy Orlando's personality, and how, taking aside society and what Orlando would represent in society, I really enjoy Orlando's personality, Orlando's identity, because we can see from the beginning to the end of the book how Orlando growed a lot. His growth, yes. For example, in the third chapter, he gave to Mr. Green a manuscript of some poem that he wrote. And Mr. Green made fun of him and published another poem making fun of him, and then he gets really frustrated. And then in the end of the book, in the last chapter, in the fifth chapter, Orlando gives another manuscript to Mr. Green, and Mr. Green simply loves it, and publishes the manuscript and compares Orlando with famous writers, awesome writers. So we can see that Orlando became a mature person and that he improved his writing skills. So that's really nice to see. And and Orlando is awesome. Like he himself or herself. I'm going to call she. She didn't care about gender, When in the movie, when she's looking in the mirror after becoming a woman, she looks to the camera and says, "Same person." So for her, gender would not matter. People would be all the same, But she's there to represent society, so she has to care about gender. But I don't know, I like the way Orlando is sad, and then he has to isolate himself because he can't handle people anymore. And then after he wants to give parties and to invite people to his house, and then he gets tired of people and he wants to isolate himself for some years, you know? I like the way... I'm kind of in love with Orlando. And that's sad, I think. Well, that's it. Bye-bye.